MGTOW monk.
Hey, MGTOWs. Welcome. I want to talk today about an important subject, which is retirement and what that really means. Unfortunately, my nose is still stuffy. I seem to have permanent nose stuffiness in the wintertime. It's been damn cold. 22 degrees in Texas. Just awful. Anyways, let me see if I can collect my thoughts a little bit. Please forgive the stuffy nose. Okay, so I guess I want to start sort of with my old days back at IBM. And one of the things about IBM that's interesting is it's a huge company. And they have these corporate bulletin boards. This is before there would be a computer monitor. There would actually be some printed out, I don't know what you call it, print spool from a dot matrix printer with the alternating white and green lines. And it would show the new retirees. No, it was the death notices. And what was interesting is it would say, okay, John Smith, and he died this month, and he retired a month ago. And then they go on to the next one. Okay, here's Daryl, and he died 3 months ago, and he retired 1 year ago. And as you go through the list, you come up with this horrible, disturbing picture, which is none of these people were retiring for very long. They're all dying. And I think one of the things you have to realize is if you live the life of a donkey carrying boulders in a cart, and you're whipped every day and you have to push against and carry those boulders, you don't live very fucking long. So this is one of the things we have to realize, that all of those longevity statistics, I don't know, I think they're bullshit somehow. They just don't seem right. They certainly, I read one statistic which is doctors' average lifespan is 56 years old. And there's actually a website dedicated to that. It talks a lot about doctores and how not to take health advice from doctors because they're dropped like flies. And then you ask, well, why do doctors drop like flies? And the answer is, they go through usually competitive college. You want to go to the top schools because you want to get in med school. And then you've got a med school isn't that hard, but they torture you a lot over stupid crap. And then they have to have a lot of stress in their job, and it's go, and they have to work long hours. It's kind of endless. And what that does is it releases a lot of cortisol into your body. And that causes a lot of bad reactions, which eventually lead to things like Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart attack. There's another thing about having this kind of broken lifestyle, and we really haven't lived through this age before. So I think a lot of us don't have, we don't have the wife at home making a healthy, fresh-cooked dinner for us with fresh-cooked vegetables. So I know a lot of years when I was working, I would be so tired, I'd just hit the corner store, pick up a bag of Doritos and some Diet Coke, and that would be dinner. I mean, not always that bad, but pretty bad. Or you'd go out to a restaurant and you'd have like a deep fried fish and French fries, or there was a Thai restaurant I liked a lot, and I'd get their tom kha gai soup, and they had this wonderful deep fried catfish and a curry sauce. But you're just eating all this unhealthy food. When you're under stress, you do not enjoy vegetables. Also, in America, we have this problem with because we have this weird mass production, mass import food system. All of our food is really old. It means the fruit doesn't taste very good. The vegetables don't taste very good. Actually, the best veggies you can get in America are the frozen ones because they're actually fresher than the stuff that's been trucked for a month in a pardon me, an 18-wheeler. So the first thing to realize is they have set that retirement age at really what is the age of death for men. Now, maybe the last generation who didn't have it as rough, the jobs weren't as hard as what we have now, maybe they lived to 74. But I don't see our generation living to 74. Sure, I think the slackers and the ones that are on disability since age 19, like my ex, they're gonna live to be 74. But I don't think those of us who've been through hell jobs and stressful bosses, and cubes with buzzing fluorescent lights, 60-hour weeks, 12-hour days, we're not going to make it till 64. That 401k plan, actually the age of retirement is 67. I'm sorry, they raised it. It used to be 65, and people my age, which is early 50s, I'm about the same age as Ronan. We have to suffer this increased retirement date for full retirement, which is up to 67. I was really shocked when I heard that they did that to us. That really pissed me off because I know for half my working life it was only 65. So what happens if I get close to retirement? I'm like, well, we're raising it till 70, you know? Like, Jesus Christ, I'm not going to live to get a penny of this money. So you have to keep that in your mindset when you think about this end-of-life centric living, which is you live your whole life trying to get through school, trying to pay off the student loans, trying to get the first car, trying to get the house paid down. I don't even think people pay off houses anymore. It's just so hard. The taxes are so bloody high. I can tell you, my house, when I got it, the taxes were $300 a month and the insurance was about $50 a month. And now the taxes are $600 a month and the insurance is another $100 a month. So it's $700 a month. And that's not even interest on the mortgage yet. So actually having this 30-year mortgage, which quadruples the price of the house, the whole thing has become impossible. It really has. It's only possible if you've got probably two people that are professionals, and you're living in a modest house in a moderately priced city. I can tell you, my city is definitely on the cheaper side. This is not California, where the house is. I remember I saw a room over a garage in my neighborhood in San Fran. The asking price was $700,000. So it's just crazy. You could get a house in the like the hoodlum for $550,000. Sorry, my microphone's tipping. I don't know why this thing is such shit, but it is. Okay. Forgive me, I'm sickly. So the thing you have to start is you can't wait to live your life until you retire. That means you can't suffer through a shit job your whole life. You can't waste all of your time doing what you hate. And I think a better attitude for MGTOWs is to take time and plan to semi-retire, get your expenses way down, and live very simply, and then work some, probably through some kind of distance consulting. You won't earn very much at all, but you'll earn a little, and then you'll have a lot of time to pursue the things you love as well. None of this is possible if you want to have kids and support a wife who likes buying pairs of shoes every day, or demands having that beautiful Nissan Murano Platinum edition with the beautiful leather, rich grain seats. That only costs, $60,000. It's just an average car. You can't have that shit. I love photography. I love old lenses and collecting equipment. And I was pretty shocked to see that, like this new, what is it, the Fuji X-T2. Oh, it's only $1,800 with the grip. And their lenses only cost $1,500. I'm like, Jesus tits, that's crazy. It's crazy to spend that much. When I got what was the top of the line camera in 2000, which was a Nikon F3 HP, it was $800, and that was a lot of money. But it was like a piece of art. It was Ferrari designed, or I forget the designer's name, but he was like also the designer of Ferraris, and it was gorgeous. And even today, if you have a perfect condition one, they still go for about $400. And then you need a good lens for it. And so back then, a good lens was about $400. And yeah, there's inflation, so I know things have doubled, but the prices of cameras have gone through the roof. And it's like that with a lot of things. I know you used to be able to get a basic pickup truck for about $12,000 or $14,000, and now these pickup trucks are going for $50,000. What the hell's going on? So now one of the strategies that people have is, I'm going to get out to the country. I'm going to buy a piece of land. I'm going to homestead it. I'm going to put in a well. I'm going to put in a septic system. And what happens is you get that far, and then the tax man comes by and says, oh, yeah, that $15,000 piece of property you bought, you made it look real nice. You get all this real nice stuff on it. We think it's a $300,000 piece of property now. And we're going to tax that, and you're going to have to pay us $1,000 a month in taxes now. And if you don't pay us, we're going to take it from you. So, does homesteading really work anymore? I don't think so. And why are all these taxes so high? Because they have armies of bureaucrats and teachers and police officers and firemen, and they all get full pensions. They all get these huge freaking pensions, like 80% of what they earned in the last salary they worked, the last year they worked, and thousands a month pensions. And they'll pay them forever, plus health care. And it just costs so much to do that. The only way they can afford to do that is to just have the property taxes just slam the F out of everybody else, which has basically destroyed the middle class, because with the ZERP state, there's no easy way to grow the principal on all of these retirement funds. So all the retirement funds are going broke. So then a lot of times the whole city themselves goes broke. So if they'll tell you straight up, if you're going to retire at 65, you're going to need about $1 million or a $2 million balance in your 401k. So if you're 50 years old and you spent your 401k to get through the last time you were laid off and couldn't find work for 2 or 3 years, and that's happened to you 3 or 4 times, because they've imported hundreds of thousands of if not millions of foreigners who work for pennies on the dollar and have fake degrees. Well, what are you going to do? That's what you've been handed. You've been handed a formula that's going to crucify you. And the only people who don't get crucified are doctors, but they're dying at age 56, so do you want that life? It's like there's no winning. So I want to talk about the solution. And the solution, there is only one solution, and that is you have to move to a country that does not have pensions and that does not have welfare, generally speaking. So there's a couple of prime countries you should probably consider. I would say stay away from Mexico, because it's just too dangerous. But a lot of people like Thailand. In Thailand, you can live. The thing about Thailand is, it used to be a lot cheaper. It used to be 42 baht to the dollar. Now it's only 34. And I've seen it as low as 33 lately. And that's only going to keep getting worse, because Thailand is up and coming and they make a lot of products. They make all those Nikon lenses now. So The other thing about Thailand, and I know Chris Cantu's over there with Miggy having a good time, and it is a good time for a while, but spend April and May and June there when it's 110 degrees and burning hot everywhere, and especially Bangkok with all the concrete and the traffic and the dirt. That's not how I envision my retirement. It just isn't. I love the food. I love the ladies. I love the people. That they're just awesome. It's, but it's changing. I never saw fat Thai people before, but now you've got Svensson's ice cream and Ben & Jerry's and Pizza Hut and American Pizza Company and all. What they're eating is changing, and as it changes to the American way, they are getting fat. Not saying that's a bad thing. That's just what's happening. So that's just one of the ways they're changing. One of the things I always talk about Thailand as amazing is how they just have so much happening. Like Hua Hin has like 5 or 6 beautiful brand new malls and shopping districts and districts with handicrafts. Bangkok has hundreds of markets, and Chiang Mai has, to a lesser extent, a couple of really nice just open air markets. They run all night, or at least till 1 or 2 in the morning. And there isn't all this fear about crime or getting attacked by black people. Sorry, I'm racist, I know. There isn't that same terror walking around late at night. I know in America, if you're older, you don't do it. You don't dare go out after dark, especially if you live in a place like Baltimore, Chicago. New York City, there's enough normal people around late at night that I think New York City has some level of security. But even there, it gets dicey. It just depends who you run into. So Thailand has this great energy, and they don't suffer the stigma of having third world immigrants. They don't have the large dystopic populations of non-Europeanic peoples that are violent, raping, and savage, and thuggish. No, they're a very old culture. They have never been fully beaten in a war, although the Japanese did force them to surrender all of their bays and moved in. But they've never formally lost. And that makes for a very proud people. So how much does Thailand cost? Well, you get a decent house for about $550 a month. That's way out though, so you're going to need a car also. If you want a nice condo, let's say Chiang Mai, which is one of the cheaper parts, if you want a nice condo in the Neiman area, it's $800 to $1,200 a month. It's not that cheap. It's a little cheap. It's cheap to eat, but if you eat cheaply, a lot of times you're not getting the best food. The best cheap eats are at the night markets, the street vendors, and also the food courts at the malls. But it's not that cheap. It's like $3.50 a meal, $4.50 a meal. It's not like it's $1 a meal. If you're getting the $1 a meal places, it's maybe you're not going to get seafood for that price. You're not going to get many vegetables. You're going to get a lot of onions and celery. You'll get noodles, and it'll be fine, but you can't eat that for every meal. So what I found is after I'd been in Thailand for many months, I would need to hit the Western food outlets, and I needed to get some Western food fix. And those are just as pricey as they are back here. It's $15 a meal, and or more. I mean, that's if you go to a fancy place, obviously you can spend much, much more. So Thailand wasn't quite the cost savings destination it used to be. And if you go to the more resorty places like Phuket and Hua Hin, it's even more expensive. But deals can be had, so it's an option. The other place that I think is really interesting, and for me, climate is very important. So if I think about, okay, what's my checklist for this phase of semi-retirement? You have some savings, you still have to work some, but you're trying basically to get your monthly expense to $1,000 a month and still live well. And there's a couple other things. I want to be within a mall, within an hour of a nice mall. I want to be within an hour of an airport. I want there to be decent internet and co-working spaces available. Not that I'll use them, but I just want to know that that's that level of culture going on. I want there to be good restaurants, both cheap and gourmet. I want there to be grocery stores, which has much of what I want, as well as access to, for me, imported Italian foods, specialties, stuff like that. So, I was looking at Cuenca, Ecuador. It's very, very expensive to get any packages sent there. They triple tax the crap out of it. So even if you get something small from Amazon and pay the ridiculous air postage, the price will triple because of the import duties, because it's a very close to communist state. So Ecuador, although cheap, doesn't fit any of the requirements very easily. And also Cuenca's quite a big city, and then the smaller cities are kind of too small, so it doesn't really fit. Also, Cuenca's pretty high up there, and it's a bit cold. Another requirement is I would like it to be a few hours from a beach. One of the issues I have with Texas is it's 8 or 10 hour drive to get to the nicer beaches, and so you just never go. It's just too far. So then I looked at Guatemala, and Guatemala has two places. You might know about HoboTraveler.com, Andy Graham. He does a lot of videos, and the remote place, which is 4 hours from Guatemala City, is called Lake Atitlan, and it's a caldera ringed by volcanoes. It's a very pretty lake. It has beautiful small towns. But the shopping is limited. It's kind of a bit primitive markets, and it is cheaper, but the housing they tend to have are hotel rooms, small rooms, and they don't really have a big abundance of real, I would say not quite modern, but modernish houses for rent. So the other city in Guatemala is Antigua, and Antigua is the historic capital. It had a big earthquake in the 1700s, and all the beautiful buildings the Spanish built fell mostly over. And the indigenous people don't know how to build like that, so it stayed that way. So, Antigua has a few good things. There's a lot of places where you can get the lunch special for $2.50, and it includes more Western style, say Spanishy, Mexican-y, Western-y style foods with real, pieces of meats grilled, and veggies and soups and juices. It's pretty good. And then for street foods, they have wonderful kind of burritos or empanada tortilla things. And they have panaderias where they have fresh breads, which is another important thing to have. And basically they have a lot of what you want, but they also have high-end stuff if you desire it. You can spend a lot, or you can live frugally there. They also have a lot of apartments that are in about the $600 a month range, but they also have very few houses in the $500, $600, $700 a month range. The thing about the houses is they're not going to have modern kitchens. You're going to have to really improvise a lot. You're going to have to bring a lot of your own stuff, and you're going to have to make do. But they are pretty nice houses, and they tend to have a lot of greenery around them and little garden areas. And so the question is, if you move there, and you go out shopping one day, are people going to break in and steal all your shit? Which happens a lot, and that's really my biggest concern. So I would have to try to find insurance policies, which in Guatemala is going to be difficult, but I'm sure it's possible. But overall, they have a beautiful climate. It's really wonderful. And you can basically, let's say your place is about $500 a month. Your food's going to be dirt cheap. You're going to be able to live on, let's say, $400 a month in food easily, and that's living quite well. So that's $900 a month. You probably need some insurance, some car stuff, basic utilities for electric usually. So you're up at about $1,200 a month. And then let's say you have 10 years to kill until you get Social Security, if ever. So that means you need about $140,000 in an annuity, probably a 4 or 5% annuity, although it's possible to get ones that are variable, high investing, that have zero loss on the downside. This is really key because you can't take the stock market risk as you're closer to retirement of losing anything. So they have these special annuities where if the stock market goes up, you can get up to like 15% a year. But if it goes down, you lose nothing. It's very clever stuff. It's a little risky because the whole company could go bankrupt, and if that happens, you lose everything. So you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You gotta be a little careful. So you probably want to have closer to like $200,000 saved, and then you can set up your annuity with like $130,000 of that, and still have a bunch of cash just in case something happens. And then you have to remember, you can still consult, you can still work, build up a small consulting business and bring in, I don't know, I'd say $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Then you can use half of that to increase your savings, and the other half you can use to take a nice trip, go visit Lima or Medellin or Buenos Aires, or go to see Veracruz and the Mayan temples, or take a trip to Tikal or the beach. So you definitely want some fun money as well. You don't want to suffer as a pauper. So the next part of the thinking about retirement is, okay, these destinations sound great. What do I do with all my shit? I know a lot of people have parents. They're just like, I'm just going to leave everything in my parents' house. But basically, you've got to really pare down. And then what I recommend is not to go with pods, but to go with the, what they call them, U-boxes, the U-Haul kind of smaller pod system. They cost $50 a month each. They're 5 foot by 8 foot, and they're about 6 feet high. So they're not that big at all. But there's one advantage to them, which is you can have them shipped internationally. And they will. If you set it all up, they will. I'll give you a quote. It's all gonna be expensive, but once you get settled and you've spent a year or maybe 2 years somewhere and you've got your residency, then it's quite simple to get those things finally shipped over, and you can then save on the $200 a month extra cost for your storage. And that kind of leaves the car, which most people will sell. I have a classic car. I can't sell it. I'll have to eventually, probably what I'll do is I'll try to get a boat, some kind of boat to ferry it over to Guatemala, if that's where I end up, and then I'll drive it from northern Guatemala over to Antigua. So that's a lot of what I've been thinking. There's another point in doing all of this that's quite satisfying, which is you don't have to pay into the system, meaning you get your $105,000 standard deduction for being out of the U.S. for a full year, 330 days out of 365. So you can earn $100,000 a year tax-free. Technically, you have to pay Social Security taxes of, what is it? It's 14%? 12.5%? I forget exactly. But, yeah, so it'll feel really good knowing you're no longer supporting this treacherous system legally, and still able to earn a living, and still able to take care of yourself and live fairly well. And the last issue is crime. And from what I've heard, if you don't go out boozing, you don't go down the alleys, you don't take a lot of drives through the country towns, the tourist main resort areas are fairly well protected and low crime. And I've been watching a few vlogs of people. One is of a 24-year-old Norwegian girl. She's like a total waif and an easy target. She hasn't had any issues at all, and she's been traveling all over. So, yeah, I think as long as you aren't walking on the streets at 2 a.m. or down little alleys, and you use your standard New York City spidey sense for what's a bad area. And, of course, yeah, something bad could happen. I know that if you go to take a drive up some of the roads trying to get to Lake Tikal, the police might actually warn you off and say, hey, you can't do this. And even if you take a tour bus, they might stop the whole bus and try to shake people down for dollars. So I'm not saying it's a picnic, but it's relatively good. The other destination that I think is getting a lot of traction right now, and it's going to be a little more expensive, you're going to need a little more money, is Portugal. And in Portugal, the big issue is the housing is going to be a bit more, the food's going to be a bit more. You're talking more like $700 or $800 a month, unless you're living way out in a shack in the country. And the big advantage of Portugal, though, is one is you're in Europe and there's all of Europe to explore. The other is they have all the wonderful French pastries and croissants and all of that stuff that I just miss so much when I'm away. I can't get that in Texas. So I guess I'm able to lump it, but it would be nice to be able to have nice little cafes and get a cappuccino and a croissant every now and then and sit out and look at the vistas. So Portugal has that, but you need more money. You need a bigger income. So it may be the case that you could start your semi-retirement, or as I like to call it, real living, as opposed to slave cube living. You can be able to start that maybe in a place like Guatemala and keep working, and maybe your earnings and nest egg will go up enough that'll give you confidence to try a more expensive place. There's also Medellin, Colombia, which is a bigger city, has a lot of cafes and nightlife and good eating, but again, it's much more at the $1,000 a month for a small condo kind of deal, and the meals are going to be much more the $6 to $10. Having those meals you can score for $2 or $3 really makes a big difference if you're trying to save money. And I think that even in Thailand you can't quite do that, because unless you're really going to eat Thai food every day, I think you'll find if you're there you won't. Like I went to Rimping, which is the fancy grocery, a lot, and in Rimping, you'd get a lot. I'd get an A&W soda because it was made with real sugar and tastes so good. All this stuff is really expensive, and like even bananas were like crazy priced. A lot of the fruit was really pricey. So if you're shopping in the grocery stores in Thailand instead of the outdoor markets, and you may have to do that just for convenience sake, your grocery bills are going to be very high. Your food bills are going to be pretty high. So everyone says, Thailand's the perfect solution, but when I got there I said, no, this isn't going to work. It's too hot, it's too sticky, it's too crowded, there's too much scooter exhaust pollution, noise pollution, crazy traffic. For all the good things about Thailand, it's really moving into a different age, and I think it's much more a place to visit for like November, December, January, and then get the heck out. So I'm trying to think if I have anything else. Just to summarize, so don't think of your life as having a work phase and then a non-working phase. I think the evidence is pretty clear that if you just stop working, you'll tend to turn to a pile of mush, watch TV, and get nothing done. It's much, much better to find yourself, what you really want to do. It may not be easy. It may be a difficult project that you've always thought about trying to do, some kind of company you've always thought of starting, and work on that, and then do some consulting, and have your expenses low enough so that you can move into this second phase of your life. And that usually means trying to find a place where you can live on about $1,200 a month, which is, what is that, $14,400 a year. So that's $140,000 a year, but you get some interest or investment on your dollars, so you need about $135,000 a year. Also, just to throw in, Guatemala is a very easy place to get residency, and then in 5 years, full citizenship. So is Peru, but Peru's a lot more expensive, especially in Lima. If you're over 50 and you can prove over about $1,000 a month in income, retirement, steady payments, then you can get a perpetual visa. In Thailand, even if you do that, you still have to check in every 3 months. It used to be online, but I still see people checking in at the actual offices. It just sounds like a terrible pain in the ass. So I definitely like the system where you just get your visa, and then 2 years you got your residency, and then a couple more years you go on and you get your full citizenship. There's also Uruguay, which is like the stoner place, and has a lot of like beach parties and rich kids. It's not cheap at all. What else? Buenos Aires is interesting because it's a big city destination, and it just has a lot of culture and wonderful people. It's very European, but it's just big city. And again, if you look at the prices of rentals, to get any kind of condo anywhere near the parts of the city you want to be in, it's gonna again be over $1,000 a month. Yeah, there are cheaper places, but they're shitholes. So you have to think about escaping the cube farm. You're not going to do it making YouTube videos. They've been demonetizing everything and taking the dollars away. So you need to think about, what's my small business that I can build? What kind of consulting can I do? You don't have to charge a lot. And I mean, if it really came to the worst of it, you really only need to make about $1,500 a month. So if you're getting $30 an hour and you're working 50 hours a week, you're working 50 hours a month, you've got yourself covered, more or less. That's not so bad. That's not so hard. And then you have to look at, you're giving up the career path, you're giving up the big dollars, but you're also giving up the commute, the headaches, the terrible bosses, the stress, the fluorescent lights, getting beat up by shitty people, getting replaced by Indians with fake degrees. There's a lot of potential to find your passions and live a true life, live a true spiritual life. And another interesting thing is, the longer time you spend self-actualizing and self-realizing, when you go back, like I made a mistake. I went back. I did a cube slave project for a while again, and everybody was so vicious and so angry and so petty, and a lot of them were also just so dumb and annoying. I didn't have friendship with any of these people. And it's because you're too far now from that world. It's really painful to go back to it. It's really painful. I hope I don't have to do it for another year. I'm working very hard not to have to. I hope this talk on MGTOW retirement is useful for you and given you some thoughts to think about. And if you like this channel, please tell others about it. That would really help. Subscribe and hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already. Also, there should be a Patreon link in the description if you want to toss me a sheckel or two. It'd really help, as I'm semi-retired. Take care, guys.